I got word today that there are several communities that are planning to unite in prayer ceremonies about this coronavirus crisis that's going on. These are pipe carrying communities, people that are pipe carriers, people that would normally be in sweat lodges, and we can't climb in a sweat lodge because it's a confined space. Now, normally, there are two schools of thought about this. My own Sundance chief thinks that there's nothing better that you could do than to climb into a healing inipi, because that's what it's for, given to us by the White Buffalo Calf woman, one of the 7 sacred rites, precisely for that reason, for healing. The other school of thought is that when you get people in a confined space like that, if somebody is asymptomatic and they don't have any symptoms, essentially they look healthy, but they might be a carrier, and so you have them in this confined space, and they could be spreading the virus unwittingly. The problem is that in our own community, our elder, who's pouring the lodge on his own land, he's 80 years old. He's a Blackfoot and a Lakota Sundancer, but he's 80 years old, and none of us would want to be carrying the responsibility of passing that virus to my 80-year-old teacher. So we've decided to cancel our lodge, which was going to be today. So even at this moment, we would have been doing a feast afterwards. So we didn't do ceremony today, but we talked about having a very small, intimate pipe ceremony tomorrow at noon on Sunday. In that way, I think we could control his exposure. We can, even if one of us is unwittingly a carrier, if we keep our distance and don't hug, for example, as we are accustomed, and we don't share pipes, we don't pass the pipes around. Each one who has a pipe, they keep their own pipe, and they can smoke that. But that way we can have a prayer circle and still accomplish what we need to accomplish without putting him at too much risk. There are other ones going on. There's a community that was praying at sunrise, I know, and there are a bunch of Lakota folks, Lakota Sundancers, who are praying this evening at sunset, and we're coming up on the sunset right now. So I'm going to do something in solidarity with them, even though I'm going to be going to my community and doing one at noon tomorrow. So, I mean, you can't pray too much, right? And each day I hear about another friend who has somehow been exposed. So my prayer list is pretty lengthy at this point. I could talk a bit about my prayer list, I suppose. It's not something that everybody does. It's not even something that most people do, I don't think. But my elder, who just passed away last week, originally gave me the idea of carrying a prayer list in a small notebook. And as I find out about people that I want to add to the list, I just write them onto the list, and maybe with a small note about what their issue is. But it doesn't really have to have their issue, because Spirit knows what that issue is. The pure fact that I spend some time writing the name into the prayer list, that's the important thing. It's the intent, and writing that, taking the time to write the name in there with intention. It's similar to doing a prayer tie. When you do a prayer tie is powerful because of the amount of time and intention that goes into them. Making prayer ties is a very time-consuming thing. So the amount of time that you invest is important. You're doing this thing instead of something else. You're doing this thing instead of watching Netflix. You're doing this thing instead of going to see a band, hanging out at the bar. We wouldn't be hanging out at the bar right now anyway, because the bars are all closed. But in normal times, and there will be normal times before too long, this will all pass. We've had viral outbreaks before. We've had typhoid, we've had polio, we've had smallpox. These things pass. They either naturally they go away, or they slow down. They're limited to a small area. Once they're detected, vaccines are developed to wipe them out. So at this point, I don't see how this is that much different from those other ones. Particularly that typhoid epidemic that I just read about yesterday, that said something like 10% of people were killed by that typhoid epidemic in the mid-19th century. And of course, the Lakota people suffered from the smallpox that the white people brought to them. All of the indigenous nations, they had no exposure to it previously. They didn't have the antibodies, so it ran amok. And so that's the position that we're in at the moment. We don't have any antibodies, so it's going to run amok until it gets under control. But all of these other things did get under control, so it's not like life is going to change for us forever. Let's gather our thoughts a little bit and see where we're going to go. Cut. So I was saying about the prayer list. My elder, who passed away last week, he's the one we were talking about. I had the fact that I had a prayer list, and what was the best way to manage that prayer list. It's difficult when you go into a lodge in the dark to remember all of the names of the people that you want to pray for. Once my list became pretty extensive, it became quite an issue. I felt like I was leaving people out because I would forget them when I was praying. I kind of compensated for that by saying a prayer that something to the effect that and all those people on my prayer list, you know who they are, too numerous to mention. I was talking to my elder about it, and he said, well, there's nothing that stops you from taking that prayer list into the lodge with you. I mean, technically, the rules are that you go in as if you were born, the way you came out of the womb, naked. Some people do naked lodges, but most of the lodges that I've been in are fairly modest, especially for the women. I usually wear yoga shorts into the lodge, and my yoga shorts usually have a pocket in them. And so I put my prayer list in a plastic baggie and then stuff that into the pocket and smuggle it in. So all of those prayers that I write down are on me when I'm praying. They're in that holy space. So all of those people that are on my list are getting exposure, and that's the main thing that I can do. But that was his idea. One of the things that I credit him with. He was like, sure, you can do that. Just sneak it in there. Don't be obvious about it. Some people would be more excited than others about it. People bring in rattles, people bring in drums. Sometimes people bring in jewelry they're not supposed to. In Lakota ways, you don't wear any jewelry into the lodge. You don't wear any bracelets. You don't wear any necklaces. You don't have any like piercings, earrings, jewelry of that kind. There are various rationale for that. There are different rationales for that. One of them is that, well, you don't want to have metal on you in there, it'll burn you. That's a practical reason. Another one has to do with the fact that the spirits are distracted by sparkly things, shiny things. Heard that too. But it depends on the lodge, how strict they are about these things. The more traditional Lakota lodge, the more strict they would be, generally speaking. But all lodges are different. If there's anything that I've learned over almost 30 years of doing this, it's that every single lodge is different. Every lodge is, not only is every lodge that a particular pourer is putting on different, but every lodge every lodge by different people, they're all different. What really matters is their sincerity, their authenticity, and their intent. And you can tell that when you're in a lodge. You can tell if it's powerful. Power. Again, we talk about power and what power is. In the Lakota way, it's closely linked to Sichuan energy, if not identical to it. So the sun is getting down there. It seemed like it went down about 7:10 yesterday, so we'll see what time we pass down today. It's going to be a little bit, it's going to be like another degree north, and it looks like they've been coming down right on top of that little tree right there. So we'll see how it compares to yesterday, but it'll be a few minutes, so I'll see you then. Hey, Shunkanagi, come here. This is Nagi, the spirit dog. He's very happy because I just fed him. And I'm scratching his butt, which he loves me to do. He's a happy dog now because I fed him. So I was out here and I was doing a pipe ceremony tonight after the sun went down, and I'm praying away with the pipe, and then I'm smoking the pipe, and after that, while I'm doing that, the dog is like going crazy because he's hungry and it's dinner time. And so I had to say, okay, well, I'll just drop what I'm doing, saving the world with my prayers, and I'll feed you. I'll save the world one dog at a time. It's beautiful out here tonight, isn't it? It's just been many days now. Nice weather, and you can see sunset across the pond over there. You can see, I don't know if you can see with this camera, but there's Venus through the trees up there. So I prayed for the people. And there were other people doing pipe ceremonies tonight as the sun went down. So their energy is combined with mine. It makes the prayers that much more powerful. If you believe in prayer, and I do. There was a time when I didn't. There was a time when I was an agnostic. I was a skeptic. And they say there are no atheists in foxholes. It's not so much that I was in a foxhole that changed my opinion about that, but it's many, many years of experience of experiencing strange coincidences, synchronicities, deja vus, and miracles happening. There was a point in my life when I was really down, and I prayed that I be given magic back into my life again. And ever since then, my life has been different. That was a remarkable time. That was after I got on the path. I got on the path in '91 with that first Yuwipi ceremony, and that fall I went on a walkabout, which was a journey, a solitary journey that I took across the United States. I had about 5 or 6 months to kill before my next job started, and I just took off. This was after I had already been exposed to the pipe, already had Yuwipi, already done my first sweat lodges, already had extraordinary things happen to me, and so I took to the road, and that's quite a story in itself. I think maybe what I'll do is I'll dedicate a chapter just to my road. See whether that fit. I can fill that 20. It would. I could fill 2 hours with that, but let's see if we can do it in 20 minutes. So it's getting too dark really to film anymore. I don't know whether you can even see me, but the fire's going nicely, so I'm going to hang out here with the dog, with the Shunka Nagi, the ghost dog, and we'll see you all tomorrow.